The 1920s was impacted by the 1910s and World War I in a number of different ways. One of the most relevant is that the Great Migration into northern cities had a large impact on the African American community. As African Americans moved into these cities, they typically were forced to settle into segregated neighborhoods, so sort of like the ethnic neighborhoods of immigrants. One of these is Harlem in New York City. They were pushed away from the South by Jim Crow legislation and lynchings, but they're pulled, the African Americans, into these cities by the cultural renaissance as well as the jobs. What happens in these black neighborhoods is that businesses develop by black ownership, leading to a resurgent black middle class. This black middle class supports writers, artists, poets, musicians in these neighborhoods, which leads to this just explosion of black cultural pride in this era. One great example is the development of jazz, but also poets like Langston Hughes and other artists and painters, sculptors, and such. They really focus on bringing a recognition to black culture and really showing off black pride, that it's okay to be African American in the United States. It does, however, point out second-class citizenship. In fact, one of the things that they were often talking about in this art was the recognition that they were second-class. Langston Hughes writes a great poem called I Too Am American, which talks about his second-class status. Recognition of the work of these African-American artists, especially jazz, Duke Ellington and such, and the role of mass media now bringing this black culture to the general population plays a huge role in eventually breaking down barriers between black and white culture. This 1920s Harlem Renaissance is really going to lay the foundation for the future 1950s and 60s civil rights movement. However, it's not all rainbows and buttercups. There is, because of mass media, African Americans are still portrayed in very stereotypical fashions. There is a movie that comes out called The Birth of a Nation, which portrays the KKK as heroic role models coming to save the day in the face of evil northern and black soldiers. There's a resurgence of the KKK that emerges during the 1920s because of this mass media. So there is also racial discrimination at the time, but eventually we do see mass media help out.